Yep, it's okay, all right. It's really some healing myself there. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, live demo practice session.
Are you ready? You need to turn off the volume of your computer. Okay.
Got it. Is that better?
It sounds better now.
But I can't hear you from the owl.
It's your personal computer sound that you need to feel.
Ah, okay,
The microphone from the personal computer.
okay. Let me, I just wanted to, yeah, I turned it off.
Okay, so let's do a sound check now.
Yep, okay. It's muted. There we go. No, we have more participants, right?
Ah, okay,
1, 2, 3, can you hear me?
Hello?
okay. Let me,
Okay, I can hear you.
okay, I just wanted to.
Can you hear me? How about that? Is that, I just completely closed my computer. See if that helps.
So can you hear me clear? No feedback?
Yes. Nope, no feedback, right? We can hear you clear. Can you hear us okay?
Very good. Also, you're ready to go. The meeting is recording and also it's in YouTube and Facebook as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And can you just give us host privileges? There are a couple of members in the attendees list.
Okay, who you want to promote?
Yep, so John, Indiana, Marshall, and Wayne. Please, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just give us one moment just to sort out our tech. And then John Francis as well, when you have a chance. Thank you, Ebenezer. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, we do not have a forum yet. But again, I don't think we're voting on anything tonight, so that'll be okay. Hi, John, nice to meet you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September meeting of the Housing and Human Services Committee. I hope everyone had a restful summer. Although we were just chatting here in the room, it feels like blinked and it's gone and it's back to, the fall and the busyness of things. But it is quite nice at least to kind of reconvene with all of you, work on these issues that are so incredibly important to our community. So thank you for being here. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started because we do have a kind of our standard agenda. We do not have any presentations. Today, we may or may not have representatives from elected officials drop in later on during the call. But as of right now, nothing has been confirmed. However, this is because it is the beginning of kind of the year, so to speak, as it relates to the community board agenda. We can certainly talk about some of the priorities that we would like to set. There's a couple of big things that, are ongoing, probably some updates, on big initiatives, for instance, like the City of Yes stuff, and things of that nature. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and, ask everyone to kindly introduce themselves, particularly, especially as we have 2 new members. And so welcome to both Sonia and John. Really excited to have you both on board and work with you this year. So maybe we can start with our members online, and then we'll turn it over to our members in the room, please.
Good night. My name is John Francis. I'm the brand new community board member. I've been living around here since I think 2018. I worked at NIMIC. So I'm pretty much in the community in terms of like housing and tenant defense and like tenant organization and TAs and that kind of stuff. So that's what really interested me to kind of like keep applying, become a part of the community board, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, good evening. I'm Marshall Vanderpool. I'm a public member with the Housing and Human Services Committee. Formerly was the first vice president of Dyckman Resident Association, Dyckman Houses, representing our residents for NYCHA. And well, I've been around a long time now, I guess, and I'm going to land my plane right. Thank you.
I guess I'll go next. Hi all, my name is Indiana Porta, and this is my second year on CB12. And before that, I was on CB9, so definitely been uptown for a while. And I am also on the Land Use Committee and excited for this new year here in the Housing Committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Wayne, although you're not a member of our committee, we work closely together. So please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Wayne Benjamin. I am not on this committee. I am a member of the board, and I chair the Land Use Committee, which Indiana, I'm happy to say, is a brand new member. And I've lived in Washington Heights since I think 1987, and I've lived uptown since like 1957. So I've been here a while. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you as well, and good to see all of you as well. Again, really excited to have everyone kind of reconvene everything and get back to the important work. Radia, maybe over to you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Radia Barnes. This is my second year. I still feel like a brand new member, but this is my second year rolling up. I was born and raised in this neighborhood. And I also serve on the Business Development Committee. And I'm happy to see everyone and looking forward to working with all of you.
Sonia, please, over to you.
Hola, my name is Sonia Figueroa Pagan. Born, raised, and educated in this community. As far as how long I've been here, I have a rent control apartment.
Oh.
So I think that states a heck of a lot of years. I am more than excited to get back to the community that helped raise me and form me into the person that I am today. So
I'm happy to have you. Great. So moving on, thank you everyone for kind of going through that. Again, as I mentioned, we do not have any presentations lined up for today, but maybe what we can do is instead use this time to talk about presentations that we would like to have in the future. So one of the things for our newer members in particular and the wider public, what we started doing last year was inviting kind of, different community-based organizations and different partners and have them come and brief us either on issues that were currently ongoing in the community or things that we wanted to learn more about. And so, as you can imagine, these things take time to schedule these presentations and meetings of that sort. So possibly we can kind of use a couple of minutes just really to brainstorm and think about which organizations we would like to see here present. One thing I'll note, and this is something that we always talk about, our committee is both housing and human services. And so we often have focused quite a bit on housing, and understandably so. Obviously, there's so much happening in our community as it relates to housing. But I want to also make sure that we're also giving attention to the human services component, because that's also incredibly important here. So with that, I'll maybe open it up and I have some initial ideas, but I want to open it up first to all of you for your thoughts, and I'll kind of just jot this down.
Yeah, I would love to focus on the human services as well, and just get some local organizations. There's a lot going on up here. So I don't have any organizations in mind, but I know that, just being on social media, reading articles, newspapers, there's quite a few that we could invite.
Great, thank you. Are there any kind of like particular issues that you would like the committee to think about? And,
We're having a lot of issues with drugs, we're having a lot of issues with mental health. So maybe focusing on that. It's just such a bad cycle that I see going on as far as maybe even the police department may be able to speak to some things that are happening. So.
And go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
No, I was gonna just say, one of the things that you may recall, it might have been before you joined, but at one point we did have a joint meeting with Health and Environment, and it was on mental health. It was about maybe a year and a half ago, and that was really well attended. We talked about some of the community resources that are available. And you recall we had I forgot the name of the organization. It was the Jewish Family Services Board.
Yeah.
And they came, and that was really, really helpful presentation to talk about kind of, how they do their intake and, things of that nature. I think that's a great suggestion.
Does the committee do any outreach on its own, or?
Not really. That's one of the things I want to talk about too.
Yeah, I'd be really hard pressed for that.
Okay, yeah.
When I walk, I do a mile walk every morning, and I see the amount of homeless and drug addicted individuals sleeping on the streets. It's overwhelming. I mean, I've been here all my life, and I've never seen what I'm seeing today.
Yeah, I hear you. On outreach, I will say, I think one of the things the community board has improved on over the years is trying to just raise awareness about that the community board actually exists. I think we still have a ways to go. And so I do think we do need to be creative about what that looks like, and recognize that it's not always just digital. I think that face to face, as we're kind of going to, as you mentioned, walking through the neighborhoods, we have those personal connections with people at organizations, and that personal invitation, hey, come to the community board meeting and present, or what are you working on, this is really important. So I'll follow up with you. We'll take you up on that, because we need that support.
I'm thinking more so along the line of doing an outreach to get them to come.
Okay.
And have those organizations present to offer the services. Face to face.
So yeah, no, let's pick that up, because maybe about a year or so, and I see Marshall, I'll come to you in a moment. Maybe it's more than a year. We were talking about hosting a community fair. And it was focused on human services.
Perfect.
And unfortunately, it kind of didn't get up off the ground. And I think there was some talk about trying to bring that idea back
We got a
up.
heart going up
So
here.
I will.
That was me. I love that idea. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm going to put you down as well, Indiana, to kind of loop you into that. I don't know where that discussion has gotten to, obviously with the summer break and everything, but good to hear that you're both interested in that. That was the community fair. Okay.
If I may just add, finding ways to loop in Columbia or New York Presbyterian, even for spaces up here, right? Because the newer building that they have on like 125th Street. I think it's called the
Mm.
Forum. They have a lot of community events there. They host a ton of things. And so finding a space here at their 168th Street kind of campus would be good for events like this.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion. I would imagine kind of the staff here probably have those relationships, or at least can help us with that outreach once we get to that stage. Marshall?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious in as much that I've been here a while and it was kind of a, how would you put it? It was something that they said was going to be done, and finally it's done. And I like a representative of our new library to present to us, as well as maybe someone from the building, the apartment
The Alliance?
building. Yes, as
Mhm.
far, and maybe have them present to us. I mean, I recall maybe almost 2 years ago, I took a walking tour with I
Mhm.
guess our then borough president, Gail Brewer, and we were going to different sites and just seeing how things have finally manifested in the community after work has been done through this
Mhm.
board and through this committee. And I don't know. I would like to know, I would like them to present and at least talk to us now that we have some sort of concrete results that
Mhm.
I can see, that we all can see that we are doing things, we're trying to do things, we're trying to be about things. And I'll land my plane here.
As Emily would always say, Marshall Land and Plains. No, thanks, Marshall. I really like that, and I think that's really important, especially in the kind of, as we have so many buildings coming up at the moment. Sometimes we have the perspective of like, okay, well, what does the end look like? And here's an opportunity for that, kind of to bring them back and talk about that. Along that vein, really quickly, I see John, it looks like you would like to speak.
Yeah, just kind of going back to the human services side of the conversation.
Sure, go
There
ahead.
seems to be a
Mhm.
nonprofit called On Point NYC. I'm not sure if you guys
Yep.
ever worked with them before, right?
Yep.
If you're on 180th Street, we could probably have
Mhm.
them come in and do a presentation if possible.
Yeah, I know that they did do, they're the safe injection site on 180th Street, and they also have another location, I think, on 125th, somewhere around there. They did do a presentation to the community board. I don't think it was this one. I think it might have been health and environment. I
Hmm.
could be wrong, but it was a couple of years ago when they were first opening up. But that could also, and that could tie into, maybe kind of what you would like us to talk about. Okay, I'm just jotting that down on point. Mhm.
I'm going to interject. Can somebody please promote Tanisha?
Yes, I just did. It looks like, yeah, Tanisha's a panelist now. Thank you.
Yeah, she is. I can see her.
Okay, great.
Or I can see her name. I can't see her.
Sounds good. Marshall, over to you.
Oh, my bad. I guess I gotta put my hand down.
Oh, okay, that's an old hand, as they say. Okay, there, I'll lower it for you. Any other kind of points on the human services side, and then I'll come to the housing bit.
Well, what I'm hearing on, this would be relevant for both housing and human services. There are a number of organizations that are and have been providing services on the housing side and the range of human
Mhm.
services. And it's good to have them come back and touch base and, let us know what they're currently doing. Some of them, we've spoken with, years ago, but they continue to provide services. They may be providing
Mhm.
services there may be services they provided in the past that they no longer can provide. So I think it would be, just a useful routine to have
Yep.
the folks that are already here doing things connect with us on a more frequent basis.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so one of the things that we started adding to the agenda, I think there's still some work to do there. It is kind of like this monthly updates from community-based organizations. So almost like a drop-in. So even if it's just like, hey, we're having this awesome event, next month that we want to get out to the community, they can come and share that. And I think that leads back to that outreach bit, which we need to do a little bit more of, so that they know that we're here and that we have that outlet for them. So to kind of get the word out of the great work that they're doing. Yeah, no, great point, Wayne. Just shifting slightly then to the housing side. Very much on the same vein that you're talking about, Wayne. I think there's a bit of follow-up that we need to do. You may all have seen, and I don't think I might have forgotten to forward it, but the report of the 4095 9th Avenue site. So if you recall back for our newer members, back in November, December last year, there was a lot of work with HPD and developing a request for proposals. This is a new kind of, affordable housing site that's going up 4095 9th Avenue. They have like surveys and things online, and they did some outreach, they did some tabling, and then they held an in-person workshop where people actually went, and I participated in that as well, and gave feedback on what they were thinking about. And ultimately they kind of compiled all of that into a report. The report has already released, and my understanding is that now the RFP has gone live, or the request for proposals has gone live to developers and community-based organizations. So the process would be that it would be a community-based organization working with the developer on the site and so on and so forth. So
What street is that on?
it's it's escaping me. It's like 218, 219. It's up there. I'll need to make sure that I send it out so that you all have it. But yeah, that would be one. On City of Yes, I'm gonna take advantage that Wayne, you're here and you're kind of our guru on all of this, and I followed this quite closely. I'll admit I'm not as up to date on where things are with that process. Would you mind, if you have a few minutes, just kind of sharing what you know of as of the moment on City of Yes?
Actually, we had representatives from city planning at our land use committee last night. So the City Planning Commission has not yet voted on the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, and a date is not set, although it's anticipated they'll vote on it sometime this month. There is still the opportunity for individuals to provide comments. The CB12 passed a resolution in June that Department of City Planning has, and one of the questions we asked is, is the City Planning Commission going to respond to that? And they're not necessarily responding to individual questions. They are asking staff, however, to make some revisions to the proposed text. And they also point out that the City Council will be making revisions. So the critical thing to point out is the extent to which either community board members have concerns or questions that were not addressed back in June, or members of the community. The process is still open, and apparently they will accept comments up until the day before the vote is made. So
That's really helpful. Thank you, Wayne. To kind of watch that recording. But am I right to hear, and I believe you answered this already, that they are kind of a bit more, while they don't have a date, they are intended the vote will happen at some point in September, correct?
Oh, that was always the intent, because you may recall, one of the things that CB12 and other community boards asked for was, is it possible for city planning to push the due date for comments from, I think it was early July to
Mm,
like late September, because that would have given us more time, even though we're in recess over the summer. It would have given us more time to, digest some of this and to have another round of committee meetings. And I even reached out to our elected, officials, our city council, our reps, to see, what their thoughts were. And what we were, advised is that the city council wants to vote on this before the end of the year. And that with the elections in November, everyone feels that pushing it beyond September means they will not get to it until early 2025, because very soon
Mhm.
everyone's attention is going to be on elections.
sure.
So they were always looking at a vote sometime in September.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Wayne. And so I do think Indiana just put, thank you, put the link in the chat for those of you who want to, kind of put any or kind of put forward any, comments. Noting that it's still open. Again, as Wayne mentioned, we did vote on it in June. And I know there, very much to what Wayne said, obviously there were kind of different opinions on certain parts of City of Yes and how it impacts us here in the community. But again, there is an opportunity for members, for you all, but the wider public as well, to still capture their thoughts on
Right.
everything.
And just as a reminder, in the Community Board 12 reso, as in I think most of our resos on things that are, so involved, we supported some things. We
Mhm.
made suggestions for, modifying others, and there were a couple where we said we didn't support it as it was currently written, and asked for city planning to clarify how certain potential impacts would be addressed. And we raised that again last night, that we were not asking, we were not asking to map certain things. We were saying that there are potential adverse impacts for some of them from our perspective. And that being the case, we wanted them to take a look at the proposal and to see how they could modify it to mitigate against those adverse impacts before moving forward with, finalizing the text.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Can that link be emailed to us?
Yes, I can do that for sure. Yep, yeah, it's in the Zoom
It
chat.
should be posted by this point on the website under the June resolutions.
Yeah, probably, but I'll also recirculate it for our members, and thank you, Indiana, for putting that in, and Wayne for that update. It's very helpful. The other thing I would probably add on this one, on the housing bit, in terms of things we'd want to do, or I would recommend that the committee considers doing, rent guidelines board. This is always a biggie. And this year, this year, as in like, I think it was in March or April, we did invite Adan, who is a tenant representative that sits on the rent guidelines board, to our meeting, if you all recall. I wish there were more people who would have attended the meeting, because what he shared was incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And he talked about ways that we can actually engage with the process. And I think the key takeaway from that is, it's not to engage once they've put out, their proposed rent increases, but actually way before, when they're starting to have those deliberations and reading the reports and all of those things. And so from my perspective, and, open to all of your thoughts, one is probably seeing if we can reach out to Adan, maybe if he can come back soon, before December at some point. I can reach out to him and say, hey, and really kind of talk through, okay, what are some tangible things that we can do, particularly since we have the most number of rent stabilized apartments in all of New York City, which is crazy. So that's a kind of another thing that's on my mind. Wayne, and then John. It looks like John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, speaking of housing and new issues, one of the things that came to mind, and I didn't raise it last night at land use, but it's certainly something pertinent for Housing and Human Services, is the direction the mayor has given to all of the city agencies to look at the properties they own and control you know, and see what the potential is to have them become, you know, sites for residential development. And when we look at our capital and budget priorities on an annual basis, one of the things that land use has put forward over the years is to, at least in our area, to look at all of the vacant properties. And initially, we were focused just on, you know, the city-owned, but, you know, now we say, you know, city and privately owned, because don't leave any rock unturned, and to package those for affordable housing development. And by packing them, it means also adding to that development package the city, you know, programs that would allow for the development to actually be affordable. Because, you know, development on its own, given the cost of construction, given interest rates, you know, given the cost of acquiring land, which is why the city looking at the land that it owns is so important. Just those things alone will not be affordable. It's the various, you know, grant and, you know, financing programs. So it will be interesting for the committee to ask, you know, someone from the mayor's office or HPD, what does that mean for Washington Heights and Inwood? What properties are potentially in play?
Thanks, Wayne. And I think that would also tie in with Borough President Levine's Housing Manhattanites strategy that if you recall, he launched. I haven't followed that closely, but that's also, you know, obviously there's a link there in seeing where that's at as well. John?
Yeah, so 3 different entities I think we should invite, just kind of based on my experience in the field.
Please.
Oh, hold on, baby, wait. All right.
I like babies, it's
so
okay.
I think so what I'm noticing, especially in the courts, is that there are a lot of tenants who, 1, don't know they have a right to an attorney, or 2, don't know they should request an attorney. So I think that we should invite the Right to Counsel Coalition over to make a presentation. Then 2, there are folks who don't really understand what kind of benefits they should have access to, like the PEPS vouchers, the PEPS vouchers, or what's the difference. And so the Legal Aid Civil Law Unit would be another entity to invite, because we just did a whole training with them, and I've been doing this for a while, and I didn't know all of that information. It's something that we should definitely know and be able to disseminate to the community if need be. And sorry, my attention is divided. I forgot the third thing.
When you remember, let us know.
No.
Please.
All right.
But that's just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let Indiana go. But yeah, those 2 definitely people we should try to invite, and then also let people know about them as well, because that like people are coming to us, we get their cases by the time, you know, there's a marshal's notice and there's not much we can do versus them to an attorney ahead of time. So we'll pass it on.
No, 100%. So 2 things on that. One, the Met Council on Housing, excuse me. You know, they run the those drop-in sessions. I think it's like twice a month or something. Normally it's on Tuesdays, and like I actually want to go and speak to them. So they obviously would also be a really good entity to reach out to. And then I believe it was Palante, which is also kind of like a tenant organizing group. They held a kind of tenants right to housing. It was like a 3-day conference. And unfortunately I found it like the day before and I couldn't make it. But they're probably also really good community contact to have as well on that. Indiana?
Thank you. I'm not sure which organization would be best to speak to us about this, but I've been reading lately, I think like 3 weeks ago, there was an article about how a lot of units that are rent stabilized had not been, like the management companies had not been registering them properly. And I guess apparently the state was starting to crack down on that. And so there were like a ton of new units that were registered, which is great. But for example, I don't know if like if my apartment gets registered or how to check. I don't know if mine was like I guess like they started charging more and they're not supposed to. I don't know
Yep.
what the word is. And so somebody that can come and like explain, how do you request the rent history for your apartment? And maybe like talking about how we can be helpful in getting the word out into the community. Because I have a neighbor who was like signing they got their new lease and had asked me like, oh, it's supposed to be stabilized. I don't understand what it means for the 1 year versus the 2 year and the impact. And I honestly didn't really know what to say. So somebody who can ask like, or who can give us some information about that and we can partner with on outreach.
Just to answer that question, definitely invite Nimic.
Please,
Nimic,
Nimic, yeah,
Great.
like they're right up the
Mhm.
road. They're at
What'd you say?
Nimic.
So we
Good,
do that
Northern
all the time.
Manhattan.
So
Yeah, that would be great.
I always forget what the I stands for. No, yeah, no, thank you. I think that's really good. I think we also need to be inviting city agencies. One, to hear from them, but also to hold them accountable as well. And so there's a bit around following up with HPD and, you know, so, and the other city agencies, not just HPD as well, but just to kind of see where things are at.
State agencies, because HCR, which is state, is responsible for their stabilization.
Yep, good point. Great, thank you all. Clearly, there's a lot. This is a very long, ambitious list, but I think it's still important just to name the things that we want to do. And so, maybe if I can, suggest that for next month, or kind of as a committee, we kind of drop this down in some type of list, and we can prioritize some of these and say, okay, these are the ones that, with a limited amount of time that we do have, it's impossible to obviously do all. Really then identify what are the ones that we're gonna focus on, or what are the ones we can kind of wait for a little bit later down the line. Where can we partner with other committees as well? Because obviously there's a lot of overlap on some of these issues, which is really important. Indiana, is that a new hand?
It is. I just had a quick comment. And
Yeah.
also maybe like which organizations we could invite on the same day. So it's like, oh, this next meeting, we're going to focus on mental health and services. And then another one that's about rent stabilization so that we don't do like topic jumping and the
Yeah.
organizations
Organize it.
might be able to like bounce off each other too.
No, that's good. And I mean, that's what the community board is meant to do, kind of be a hub for these types of things. And I think you're right. If we can kind of dedicate, you know, each meeting to a particular theme and try our best to kind of organize, presentations around those issues, then, that would be super helpful. Okay. Anything else before we move on? No, okay, I'm just gonna check. I think this is the old question in the chat, yeah. All right. Then I would like to briefly, if it's okay, talk about the capital budget requests, because I know that's happening next month, right, Wayne? It always creeps up on us, and I haven't seen anything yet. I'm like, we need to do this now, not now, but as in like, these are things we need to be thinking about. And I'm gonna see if I can pull it up on my phone, what we submitted from last year. And I'll kind of come to explain a little bit about what that process is in a moment.
Does that come out of this office or the borough president's office?
So it's my understanding, and Wayne, I may look to you. So my understanding, so it's sent out to all community boards. And each committee then has to kind of put together a list of things that they would want to see kind of city funding go towards different issues. And then what happens is, as an entire community board, you know, the 50 or so members that are for CB12, we then rank it. And then that gets submitted to the Office of Budget Management. Is that how it works, Wayne? I'm probably.
I believe it goes to OMB, although I think,
OMB. Yep.
you know, city
Budget
planning may
management.
now be playing a role in that, but it goes to City Hall.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like, okay, this is what they're saying, and usually what then happens is that'll, you know, help inform hopefully, the kind of budget for the next year. And one of the things that usually happens, it happens so quickly because obviously we've had the summer break. And so usually it's by October, our next meeting, we'll need to have a list ready as the committee to say, this is what, from the Housing and Human Services perspective, these are things that we want to see. One of the things that we started working on last year, I don't think we ended up finishing it, was actually going through the responses that city agencies gave. So once it's submitted, and I can't really access my computer now, but it's like a spreadsheet. Just to kind of explain, there's like a code budgeted to it. It talks about the relevant agency and what the issue is. So in some cases, as an example, one of the ones that we always put forward is more funding for food pantries, right? That's something, and it's, you know, kind of a couple sentences. And the relevant agency would then respond often to say, this is already, we're already funding this, or we can accept this, or whatever the case may be. And so some of the work that we've been trying to do is actually engage with the city agencies and say, what did you mean by that? Can you provide an update? What does this look like? It's obviously a very big task, as you can imagine, going through that. But what I will do is, let me see if I can actually manage to pull it up without messing up the tech. Just to talk through some of the ones that we put forward last year. And they usually tend to be the same ones that we go through. While I do this, Wayne, do you have anything else? Because I'm just conscious that we have our two new members, Sonia and John, that maybe I might have missed in explaining the process.
No, I mean, but it's just, I think important for, you know, the new members to understand that on a yearly basis, all community boards and community board members are asked to rank capital and budget priorities for their district. And we get a certain number of, you know, capital and expense budget items. And this helps to inform, in theory, how the city agencies are allocating money. But it also helps to provide sort of a guideline for, you know, what are the, you know, priorities for the community moving forward. And one of the things that it's important to do that sometimes we do well and sometimes we don't do so well is to coordinate between or among committees, because we only get a certain number. So let's say we get, you know, 38 expense items. If we have 2 or 3 committees basically asking for the same thing, we are competing against, you know, each other. And there have been times when we're sitting in the general meeting and we are ranking it, and we'll have committee A and committee B, and they will literally have the same item. And instead of combining it into a single one so that we have one ask and get more votes, there's this sense of this belongs to committee A or committee B, and we don't want to, you know, give up our ownership of that. And, you know, so if we're looking at what is in the interest of the community as a whole, it needs to be, you know, less focused on who originated the item and more on what are we asking for. If we're duplicating it, let's, you know, consolidate it so that we open up another line to ask for something else.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Wayne. That's super helpful. You'll see it's a very long, a very important process for sure, but a very long process, and it involves so many different moving pieces. And I think particularly as Wayne mentioned, the intersectionality of where a lot of these things fall can sometimes be a little bit of a tug and war when it shouldn't be. And so just having that coordination early and ahead of time is important.
Yeah, if Housing and Human Services is asking for housing for seniors and Committee for the Aging is asking for housing for seniors, you know, there should be like one ask as opposed to competing ask for housing for seniors, because that means out of the 38, using just as an example, there's something else that can't get in there if you're duplicating the same ask.
Exactly. So we're not gonna go through this now, but I raised this because I think it's important to start thinking about it now and not when we come in October. What I will do is I will share this. I understand that, there have been responses already to what we, as an entire board submitted, from OMB with the response of the city agencies saying, either yes, we support this, or no, we can't do this, or this duplicates work. Those are kind of the generic responses that we received. I have not seen it yet. I will try to find it online and send it and share it with everyone. And so I think there's a bit of, again, an exercise for all of us to take a look at it, be informed and come ready for the exercise in October. So we need to put this
So
forward.
you'll email them to us for us to be able to, okay.
Yeah, exactly, to start thinking about it. And I'll see, again, I'll need to find out where the link is, probably on the OMB website. All right, so I'll stop sharing, but this is kind of where it is, so you'll see, for example, provide funding to construct affordable, accessible senior housing, provide, more housing for at-risk and transitioning individuals and families, and so on and so forth, so, yeah. So I'll pause there and stop sharing. That's all I had for those points. Indiana?
I just had a question. Is
Sure.
there any benefit to doing like more specific asks? Because one of the questions when I had reading through the list that we got last year, it was like, like you said, let's do more housing for seniors or whatever. And so the responses that they gave, like you said, are very, sometimes kind of vague. And then it's great to have them come and follow up. But at that point, like, we kind of like are waiting now until the next year. And so since we're early in the process right now, like, I'm curious if there are thoughts of like, what if we like are very specific? Are we more likely to get further? I don't know. And I don't know who could speak to that, but it's something that's been on my mind.
That's a really good question. I'll be honest, I don't know. But that's a really good question. Wayne?
Being specific, can help. I mean, there were in the past, and that's my alarm going off. There are particular projects that we wanted HP to focus on, or some agency, and when we say provide funding for renovations at X address, that's a very specific a project, so that can help. And Youth and Education does that quite frequently, where they're talking about providing funding for the library at this school, or to fix the swimming pool at that school. So I mean, the extent to which there are specific needs. One of the things that comes up on the flip side is folks meeting our fellow community board members, why is it that you're asking only for funding for school A, B, or C, and what about the others? But in many cases, there's a rationale for something. In the case of some of the residential, we had buildings that were less than habitable, and tenants had to move out. And so it was important for the renovations to move forward, and to get those renovations moving forward, the city had to fund it.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. That's super helpful. And yeah, that's a great suggestion, Deanna. So I think one for us to think about as we kind of look ahead to the October meeting. Anything else on this point? No? Okay. So then as I mentioned, we don't have any electeds joining us today, but they are aware of the meeting, and hopefully they can join us on a more regular basis starting next month. We kind of talked about the presentations from community-based organizations and agencies, and so we'll start kind of doing some of that outreach. What I will say is that it definitely takes it's a committee effort. So what I can do is kind of put together, or at least start a list. And if some of you maybe have connections with some of these organizations, or are particularly passionate about some of these topics and want to kind of do the outreach, please feel free. The more help, the better, because it really is a committee-wide effort, and then you can kind of just put your name to what you want to do, and then kind of take it from there. I think that's it. Again, we don't have updates from either electeds or CBOs. Do we have any old business? I think we kind of talked about it already. I see committee priorities. We talked about that already. Top. Okay. New business? I have one item. I'll make it quick too.
I just
Yeah.
have one thing that I will also make quick. I would
Please.
love whenever, like, especially if the City of Yes stuff is intended to move quickly, I would love to have some of the elected officials come and talk to us. Like, we had, like we said in our resolution, we identified a couple of specific questions, and I don't know, I think that, like, it would be great to have some of the council members really come and say, this is why we support it, and engage
Mhm.
us more on that.
For sure. No, can do. I think that's a great point. And maybe that's another thing, because when I reached out to them, I said, it'd be great to just know a little bit more about, what are the priorities for your office over the next coming months, but it's also looking back as well, in terms of City of
Yeah.
Yes and other bits and pieces.
Especially because whenever we were getting briefing from the administration about City of Yes, they're the ones that said that city council wanted to rush this, but like, I want to hear from the city council members if that's true.
That's the case,
Are they on that fast track, or do they
Mhm.
intend to also try or to slow the brakes down or whatever, just to get their perspective on it? I think would be helpful.
No, great point. The other thing, before I forget, it's kind of slightly going back on housing that we were doing, was inviting or reaching out to, the developers. And so all of these sites that we see across our neighborhood, reaching out to them, having them come and present.
That would be awesome.
We did have a few. We had one, for the site on, Broadway and Sherman. They did come and present, and we had a robust conversation, about that building. And so I think that's something we also want to kind of continue doing as well. One, to learn about where they are in the process, but also for your awareness and for John's awareness, earlier this year, I say this year as in like the calendar year, but then it's like the community board year. We passed a resolution on the standards, things that we would like to see developers kind of go through, or what's the process. And so that includes, from the beginning of, purchasing a site, and who's the developer, and have they done community engagement, all of that, and really keeping us informed. It's a resolution, so it's not binding, but it is one of the things that we certainly want to put out there, say this is what it's important for these entities to come and talk to us about what they're doing in our community, and really ensuring that what they're doing is actually culturally responsive and inclusive, as it should be. And then, should be. And then I guess the other point is more under new business, more of a logistical point. We do need volunteers to help take minutes for each of the meetings. I can do September. And so usually the way it works is, for John and Sonia, we kind of ask, if everyone kind of sign up. Obviously things change. If, let's say for instance, next month works for you. The way it works is after the meeting, we'll send you the Zoom recording. There's a template to take the minutes. So it's kind of all laid out. And then, you have about 2.5 weeks or so to do it. And then it gets sent to the office staff, and then they compile it ahead of the general meeting, which happens at the end of the month. So, please have a think, be looking for volunteers. Don't all jump at once. I will do September, because I didn't come kind of ahead of time saying, hey, who's gonna do this? So I will do that. But I'm certainly looking to all of you to each kind of take 1 month between now and May. That's okay. Anything else? No? Okay. I guess the last final point before we may end at 8 p.m., which is great. The final point is, again, to that point that you mentioned, Sonia, is I would really like us to increase public participation in our meetings. I see so many people, and you probably see it, you know, with your neighbors, your coworkers, so on and so forth, talking about housing, talking about the human services issues that are happening, not just in our community, but across the city. So please, let's kind of really focus on that outreach, and we'll be in touch in terms of what that could look like. And it shouldn't just be you, it should be all of us. Whether it's posting things in, like, you know, community Facebook groups or online groups, in our, you know, everyday engagement with people in our neighborhoods, really inviting them and getting the word out, because I think it's so important for that to, you know, we have the space. So with that, I'd like to, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Wayne, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful
Pleasure.
evening, and we will see you all next month. Thank you.
Take
Good night,
care.
everyone.
Thank you.